We're chatting with Henrietta Bollinger on their new book, Articulations, published by Tender Press. Can you summarise for a potential reader what Articulations is about?
Articulations is a collection of essays on disability rights, but coming from a very personal perspective. So kind of includes some quite sort of intimate portrayals of my life as a way of like exploring disability rights, and also touches on my life as a queer person.
Can you talk a little bit about your writing process? What was it like capturing these memories?
My writing process is actually a mixture of kind of talking through these moments that have happened in my life, talking them through with trusted people, and then I guess, and that happens well before I would capture them on the page. So in a way, I sort of find the centre of what I'm trying to say by having conversations with people. And I've been asked before as well about the kind of intimacy and vulnerability of it, and I think partly what's important to me about that is that as I was going through the process, I had a lot of conversations, particularly with my mentor Pip Adam, around the disclosure of those kinds of moments, but kept coming back to the fact that that I was wanting to write something that disabled people would feel reflected in, and kept thinking about myself as a disabled person and what I needed to read growing up, and the kinds of conversations that we're having as a community, and sort of thinking, it is that level of vulnerability that that I need as a reader, and that's hopefully going to create some conversations. And so you kind of, you definitely weigh these things for yourself, but you also, I kept coming back to sort of who it was for and what I wanted it to do in the world, and that level of vulnerability seemed appropriate.
What do you hope this book achieves in terms of improving visibility for disabled people?
I'm very conscious that that this book has been supported either through like mentorship or funding and that kind of thing, and I'm conscious, and I was conscious as I was writing it, that we don't get a lot of representation, which was part of why I wanted to write it, because I wanted to write something that I had experienced but hadn't read very often, and I wanted to write something that where I have read really good disability writing, I've had this experience of like really feeling a resonance of that, or recognising myself in other people's stories, and when you're in a minority you don't get that experience very often, so I guess I wanted to contribute that. And then if you're a non-disabled reader, it's been really nice to see that it is kind of giving people food for thought and insight about what being a disabled person is like. But I also don't kind of intend it as a sort of as an educational book. I sort of hope that for disabled people, I hope that it feeds some of that hunger for representation of ourselves, and for non-disabled audiences, I hope that it prompts them to go out and also consume the voices of other disabled creatives, I guess, rather than coming away with the impression that there's one way of being and feeling and doing disability.
Can you tell us about your work as a disability advocate?
I was asked actually whether I thought that my writing itself is activism, and in a way, particularly when I'm writing about disability, it is. It is trying to kind of, shed some light on some of what I think, some of the issues that ableism causes in our world. And then I guess, more broadly, I've worked in a lot of different spaces trying to get visibility and representation for disabled people. One area that is that I'm thinking about at the moment because of it being election time is that and it comes up in the book, working on getting representation for disabled people in Parliament, and then more recently my work has been there's been a nice crossover between being able to be a writer and an artist and actually doing some of that structural and systemic advocacy around access for disabled artists. So I also co-wrote with Nathan Mudge a small guide on accessibility in theatre in Aotearoa and how to make some of our creative practices more accessible and inclusive. So there's been a nice synergy there.
What was the process like getting your first book to the point of being published by Tender Press? Do you have any advice for first-time writers?
It's been a wonderful process with Tender Press. I really love that they're local. I really love that their kind of ethos again is like around who have we not sort of heard from, and that they're really willing to like listen and offer really constructive criticism and editing, but very interested in keeping the integrity of the writer's voice. In terms of first-time writers, I guess just that this process for me took 3 years and was also on top of having developed a column and learnt how I wanted to write about disability on top of that. And so I guess work to your own pace and not to measure yourself against like how long you think these processes are going to take. But also just like practice. And I've been really lucky in that I was given that space through a column in Salient to kind of practice and develop my voice, and through places like the Institute of Modern Letters, like doing those kind of courses. And so I've had a lot of different kind of avenues to develop and find my own voice. And then I guess I was also I just felt also this real sense of community around the book, and had people who were like willing to sort of encourage me along the way and suggest that it might be time to take the next steps, like putting like submitting to publishers and stuff like that.
Can you explain the concept behind the cover design?
So the artwork is by Stace Robertson, and the cover design is by Yawenho. I had some choice over who was going to do the cover art, and I knew immediately that I wanted it to be another disabled artist. That I knew that that Stace, as both a disabled artist and someone who knows me well, would sort of be able to capture what I wanted, and also just that if there was an opportunity for this book that's in my voice to create other opportunities for other disabled artists, then I wanted it to do that. Because I think, having said that there are barriers to the arts, it doesn't mean that we're not out there doing it. There's this wealth of disabled creativity, and I think kind of being disabled in the world as well, you need to often come up with creative solutions to kind of just daily life. And so, yeah, there is this wealth of creativity out there, but it's making it easier for those people to be seen and recognised and get through the door. I also was really conscious, and Stax was really good at acknowledging this as well, that I wanted the cover to be to not a lot of the imagery around disability is often things like mobility equipment and that kind of thing. And I mean, we can have quite personal relationships with our with the equipment that helps us kind of move through the world and that kind of thing, but they are not us. And so I wanted it to be, I wanted not to be reduced to symbolism, and they understood that. And then I sort of, this idea of the, so for people who can't see it, it's a colour portrait of myself, with sort of white fractal shapes across it. And the reason that I wanted it to have that sort of fragmented look is that it's kind of pieces of myself that I'm offering up.
How has finding community impacted you?
I talk a little bit in the book about whether we kind of need to move from one, whether we need to kind of go through this rite of passage of moving from, not identifying with disability to strongly identifying with it, and whether that's something that people always need, or whether you can kind of circumvent that. I think we're getting to a place more and more where people feel like they can openly identify as disabled or proudly identify as disabled. But it seems to be like something that, because of ableism, is quite a hard thing to sort of do and hold on to your sort of pride as a disabled person. Community, both the launch and the response to the book have been this beautiful instance of community and reminder of the community that I'm in, of these like creative and innovative and resilient people. And it was a lovely moment to have a book come out and just be able to like celebrate who we are. But I originally found that community through kind of, meeting other disabled people and then working for and advocating for the community.
Thank you to Henrietta Bollinger and Tender Press for this interview. You can reserve a copy of Articulations on the library catalogue at wcl.gov.nz.